People lose their minds when they move. Literally. We dug through the most insane, unhinged, and totally real moving company complaints in America. If one of these 69 absolute meltdowns actually makes your jaw drop or forces a laugh, hit that new hype button under the video. You only get 3 hypes a week, so let us see if these terrible customers can earn one of yours today. 1. The absolute fastest way to get a full refund from your movers might just be their own efficiency. One Ohio family instructed a crew to pack absolutely everything in the kitchen. That crew took the instruction literally. 2 weeks later, the homeowners opened a meticulously labeled box in their new state, only to get hit by the nuclear scent of a fully packed, sealed, and fermented garbage can. The official complaint stated the movers should have intuitively known not to transport rotting banana peels. 2. Corporate dispatchers hear a lot of wild threats, but a Savannah woman brought a completely new one to the table. She furiously demanded compensation because the crew left behind a crucial family member. Her Victorian-era ghost? Bartholomew. She explicitly told the workers to leave an antique mason jar open on the counter so the spirit could climb inside before they sealed it. One busy guy threw the empty jar into a box without waiting, and she claimed her new condo felt unacceptably normal. 3. How dare a human being require oxygen while doing manual labor? A guy in Portland filed a formal grievance demanding a discount because his lead mover was breathing entirely too aggressively. The customer stated the heavy exhales were ruining the peaceful energy of his home and causing him severe anxiety. Keep in mind, this worker was carrying a solid oak dining table down 2 flights of stairs in 90-degree heat. Management gently reminded the client that respiration is a mandatory part of the job. 4. Gravity is apparently just a suggestion for some homeowners. Texas resident left a scathing 1-star review because 3 average-sized dudes refused to carry a literal 2,000-pound cast iron bank vault up a completely vertical spiral staircase. The guy insisted they just needed to pivot and use their leg muscles. When the foreman politely pointed out that the entire staircase would instantly collapse under the weight, the customer called them lazy and complained that nobody wants to work anymore. 5. Box number 42 arrived completely soggy and smelled identical to a premium dark roast. Why? Because a hyper-focused crew in Seattle packed a Keurig machine while it was actively dispensing hot coffee. The customer had turned her back for 30 seconds to grab a mug, and by the time she turned around, her morning brew was already taped up and loaded onto the hand truck. She called the dispatch office absolutely livid that her electronics were marinating in French vanilla. 6. Criminals really need to read the terms of service before hiring legitimate businesses. A Florida man actually contacted the Better Business Bureau to file a complaint because his movers refused to load up his thriving, extremely illegal basement weed farm. He had over 50 potted plants under heavy heat lamps and was deeply offended when the crew told him they were a local transport service, not a cartel logistics division. He genuinely thought his anger was justified because he was paying a premium hourly rate. 7. Bright orange box trucks are standard in the industry, but they completely violate the strict beige aesthetic of upscale gated communities. One homeowner threw an absolute fit, screaming at the dispatcher that the company truck was clashing with her neighborhood rules. She demanded they immediately send a neutral-toned vehicle or wrap the current one in a massive white tarp to avoid offending her neighbors. The crew just sat in the driveway eating sandwiches while she threatened to sue everyone involved. 8. Malicious compliance reached a new peak when a team packed a used cat litter box exactly as they found it. No plastic bags, no dumping the contents into the trash. They simply took the crusty plastic tray, full of fresh feline presents, dropped it into a heavy-duty cardboard box, and sealed it tight. The unfortunate customer only discovered this tragedy when they unpacked their master bedroom and a toxic cloud of ancient dust permanently bonded with their fresh mattress. 9. Full-service packing means the company puts your items into boxes. It does not mean they are your personal maids. A Chicago bachelor learned this harsh reality when he angrily complained that his movers packed a frying pan still heavily coated in bacon grease. Worse, they meticulously wrapped a half-eaten bowl of soggy cornflakes in thick bubble wrap and stacked it with the good china. He argued for an hour on the phone that they should have done his dishes first. 10. Childcare is wildly expensive, so one mother tried to use a local moving crew as a free alternative. She tried to withhold her final payment because the workers refused to watch her twin toddlers while she left the house for a yoga class. She figured that since she was paying for their time, they could easily alternate between carrying heavy oak dressers and changing dirty diapers. When the crew chief declined, she blasted the company online for being hostile to working mothers. 11. Grandma's antique cookie jar turned out to be something significantly darker. A family was totally mortified when they unpacked their pantry boxes and found their late grandfather sitting casually next to the canned beans. The movers had grabbed a beautiful brass urn from the living room mantel and packed it safely with the dry goods. The angry complaint highlighted the extreme emotional trauma of searching for Grandpa for 3 days, only to find him wrapped in packing paper alongside 3 boxes of macaroni. 12. Total disaster struck when a customer set their only set of car keys on a kitchen island right next to a pile of random junk. A mover grabbed the entire pile in one swift motion, buried it in a medium box, loaded it into the very back of a 26-foot truck, and locked the padlock. The customer demanded the guys unload 3 tons of furniture right there in the driveway. The official grievance stated the workers should possess psychic abilities regarding important items. 13. Biological functions do not care about imported Italian marble. A wealthy client in Beverly Hills lost her absolute mind when a sweaty mover dared to use her pristine guest toilet. She immediately dialed the police to file a trespassing report, loudly claiming that specific bathroom was strictly for decorative purposes only. The dispatcher had to gently explain to this woman that if you hire human beings to do back-breaking manual labor for 10 straight hours, they might occasionally need to flush a toilet. 14. Traffic laws apply to everyone, even if you are really hungry. One impatient guy demanded the moving truck heavily exceed the highway speed limit because he had urgent dinner reservations. He tailed the fully loaded box truck in his sports car, honking frantically the entire way down the interstate. When the driver obviously refused to go 90 miles per hour in a 10-ton commercial vehicle, the customer called the cops to report the moving company for deliberate time theft. 15. Honesty backfired completely for one dedicated crew. A husband secretly slipped the foreman an extra $100 in cash to conveniently lose 3 specific boxes containing his wife's massive space-hogging shoe collection. The workers, wanting to maintain their professional integrity, delivered those boxes perfectly unharmed to the new house. The furious husband called corporate the next morning, complaining that the crew lacked basic customer service skills and totally ruined his master plan. He even demanded a refund for his own secret bribe. 16. Hungry families often order takeout on moving day, but you have to guard your food with your life. One couple set 2 large pepperoni pizzas on the counter and turned around to grab paper plates. In that 5-second window, an ultra-fast packer swooped in, assumed the boxes were just flat kitchen items, and shoved them deep into a massive wardrobe box. They filed a furious complaint about stolen food, totally unaware their dinner was currently sitting under a pile of winter coats. 17. Therapy is rarely included in a standard moving contract. One woman expected her lifting crew to double as licensed psychologists. She called the main office in tears, complaining that the guys loading her couch were not emotionally supportive enough while she processed the trauma of leaving her childhood home. She specifically noted that while the foreman did hand her a tissue, he completely failed to ask deep questions about her feelings or validate her complex emotional journey. 18. Dust bunnies are apparently highly valuable artifacts to some people. A very bizarre accusation rolled into a Nevada dispatch center when a customer claimed the crew actively stole dirt from her property. She had swept the dust from under her rug into a small pile, planning to analyze it later for unknown reasons. A helpful worker saw the pile and tossed it in the trash. She genuinely accused the company of destroying critical, irreplaceable evidence of her historic home. 19. Demonic possession is not covered under basic liability insurance. A New Orleans resident bought a massive vintage mirror from a spooky estate sale and hired professionals to transport it. The very next week, they filed a terrified complaint claiming the movers had wiped away a protective salt seal on the glass, releasing a malicious entity into their new apartment. They aggressively demanded the company pay for a high-end professional exorcist, arguing that spiritual containment was a guaranteed part of the service. 20. Exhaustion makes people do incredibly stupid things. A guy in New York decided to take a quick break from directing the crew by taking a nap on a pile of soft-moving blankets in the very back of the truck. The workers pulled the roll-up door down, locked it tight, and drove 3 hours straight to the destination. The dude woke up in pitch-black darkness, surrounded by his own dining chairs. His final review simply stated he did not appreciate being treated like standard freight. 21. Nostalgia makes people entirely irrational. A guy from Michigan filed a formal grievance because his crew refused to pack a giant cooler full of snow from his front yard. He was moving to Florida and wanted to build one final snowman on the beach. When the foreman explained that their commercial trailers are not climate-controlled and the snow would instantly melt and flood his electronics, the customer called corporate to report a complete lack of seasonal holiday spirit. 22. Safety regulations completely ruined one exotic pet owner's day. An Arizona man demanded a massive discount because the driver refused to let his 6-foot rattlesnake ride shotgun in the cab of the truck. The customer claimed his highly venomous reptile gets terrible motion sickness in the dark cargo area. Management firmly backed their driver, stating that an agitated desert predator freely slithering around the gas pedal is a major violation of federal highway laws. 23. Physical attraction actually became a serious liability for one company. A newly divorced woman requested a full refund because the 3 men assigned to her job were entirely too muscular and handsome. She formally complained that their physical appearance was incredibly distracting and completely ruined her ability to focus on organizing her boxes. She seriously argued that the dispatcher should have sent average-looking workers so she could maintain her peace of mind. 24. Fire hazards are just a myth to some clients. A chaotic homeowner aggressively complained that her movers threw away a perfectly good vanilla-scented candle. The problem was that the candle was fully lit and actively burning on the coffee table when the crew arrived. She fully expected them to just place the flaming jar of wax into a cardboard box full of paper and drive it across town. She threatened to sue them for destroying the relaxing ambiance of her moving day. 25. Fast food cravings completely destroyed one's schedule. A hungry customer was absolutely livid when the driver refused to take a 26-foot commercial moving truck through a standard Wendy's drive-through lane. The guy was following in his own car and demanded they stop for a quick burger combo. When the driver pointed out the massive truck would literally rip the restaurant roof off, the guy filed a formal complaint claiming the company was denying him basic human rights. 26. Barefoot moving is not an industry standard. A lady with pristine white carpets demanded the entire crew remove their heavy steel toe boots every single time they stepped inside her house. When the men explained they were carrying a massive upright piano and needed actual foot protection to avoid crushing their toes, she immediately called the police. She filed a damage claim, stating the company completely disrespected her home by prioritizing worker safety over her rug. 27. Navigation apps focus on speed, not scenery. One extremely wealthy client refused to pay her final bill because the semi-truck took a major interstate highway instead of the coastal scenic route. She was not even riding in the truck. She just felt that her expensive antique furniture deserved a beautiful ocean view during the long transit. The dispatcher hung up on her after explaining that commercial trucks are strictly banned from driving on that specific coastal highway. 28. Furniture assembly has very logical limits. A college student threw a massive tantrum because his moving team refused to put his complicated IKEA bed frame back together. The catch was that he bought the bed off a random guy on the internet, and the movers never actually took it apart in the first place. He handed them a bag of mismatched screws and 0 instructions. When they politely declined the puzzle, he blasted them on Yelp for terrible customer service. 29. Astrology dictated an entire moving day disaster. A California woman locked her front door and refused to let the crew inside because the lead driver was a Scorpio. She called the main office in a sheer panic, demanding they immediately send an entirely new crew composed strictly of earth signs to keep her energy balanced. The company ended up charging her a massive cancellation fee because they do not organize their daily labor schedules based on the zodiac calendar. 30. Soup belongs in a bowl, not a cardboard box. An elderly man filed a furious insurance claim after a fast-paced crew packed a bowl of hot chicken noodle soup that he had left on the dining room table. He was shocked when he unpacked his expensive electronic equipment a few days later and found dried noodles crusted all over his expensive gaming console. The movers literally wrapped a ceramic bowl full of broth in packing paper and nestled it right next to his controllers. 31. Conflict resolution is not part of the moving package. A renter who was actively being evicted demanded that his strong, muscular moving crew physically fight his angry landlord in the driveway. He figured since he was paying them by the hour, they could act as his personal security detail. The workers simply sat in the cab of the truck with the doors locked until the police arrived. The angry tenant later complained that the company lacked basic loyalty to their client. 32. Personal hygiene items should always be packed by the owner. A furious woman called corporate to demand thousands of dollars in compensation because her movers packed her false teeth. They did not just pack the dry teeth. They took the entire glass of tap water the teeth were soaking in, wrapped the top in plastic wrap, and placed it inside a wardrobe box. She had to eat soft oatmeal for 3 days while desperately digging through 50 boxes looking for her missing smile. 33. Comic book nerds can be incredibly protective of their collections. One guy filed a very serious grievance because a worker paused for 3 seconds to admire a framed vintage Batman issue. The customer accused the mover of violating the strict visual privacy of his expensive collection. He claimed the worker looked at the artwork with too much aggressive intensity and demanded a 50% discount for the extreme emotional distress it caused his inner child. 34. Gravity always wins, no matter how much you complain. A furious homeowner expected 2 standard movers to manually hoist a 6-person hot tub through a 3rd-floor master bedroom window using nothing but ropes. When the foreman politely explained that this required a specialized crane and absolute structural reinforcement, the customer called them weak. He formally complained that professional lifters should simply go to the gym more if they cannot handle a basic hot tub. 35. Thirst is apparently a crime in Texas. A sweaty worker made the fatal mistake of taking a quick sip from a running garden hose in the backyard. The homeowner absolutely lost her mind, accusing him of stealing her municipal water supply. She actually calculated the cost of 3 seconds of water flow and tried to legally deduct exactly 4 cents from her final bill. She wrote a scathing review claiming the company secretly trains employees to drain local utility lines. 36. Helping out does not automatically make you a paid employee. A young guy grabbed exactly 1 small box of pillows and carried it to the truck to speed things up. At the end of the day, he confidently handed the driver a handwritten invoice for his physical labor. When the company naturally refused to pay a random customer for 30 seconds of unsolicited help, he reported them to the labor board for severe wage theft and totally refused to tip the actual workers. 37. Riding on the roof of a commercial vehicle is highly illegal. A thrill-seeking teenager threw a massive fit when the driver locked the ladder and refused to let him surf on top of the truck during the crosstown trip. The kid argued that since his parents rented the entire truck, he legally owned the roof space for the afternoon. The parents actually supported his insane logic and called the main office to complain about the driver being a total fun killer. 38. Spiritual blessings are generally handled by religious leaders. A deeply superstitious lady refused to sign the final paperwork because the weary movers declined to hold hands and chant a prosperity prayer in the empty living room before driving away. The guys were completely exhausted after a grueling 12-hour shift and just wanted to go home and sleep. She filed a formal claim stating their bad vibes completely cursed her old property and ruined her spiritual aura. 39. Television addiction can absolutely ruin moving day. A man was perfectly fine until he realized the crew had securely packed his television remote control at the very bottom of a massive electronics box. He physically blocked the exit of the house, demanding the workers unpack the entire loaded truck just so he could watch a football game while they finished the heavy lifting. The police had to be called to slowly explain the concept of standard packing procedures to him. 40. Sneezing is a natural bodily reflex, but one client treated it like a biological weapon attack. A worker accidentally sneezed while carrying a rolled-up vintage Persian rug down the hallway. The ultra-rich homeowner shrieked in horror and demanded the company completely replace the $10,000 carpet, claiming it was now permanently contaminated with peasant germs. She even asked the dispatcher for the medical records of every single employee on the crew. 41. Legos are tiny plastic nightmares for anyone packing a house. A frantic mother left a bad review because the crew simply scooped up thousands of loose bricks from the playroom floor and threw them into a heavy-duty box. She was furious because she fully expected the hourly laborers to sit on the floor and meticulously sort the microscopic pieces by exact color and size before transport. She accused them of completely ruining her child's complex architectural vision. 42. Driveways are specifically designed for parking vehicles. A completely unhinged customer called the local police to tow a massive moving truck because it was blocking his own driveway. Yes, it was the exact truck he had hired to move his own furniture. He simply forgot they were loading his house, walked outside to grab his mail, saw a huge vehicle blocking his sports car, and went into a blind rage. He later complained the company made him look totally stupid. 43. Birthday cakes are meant to be eaten, not transported in hot trailers. A furious client demanded cash compensation when a worker refused to carry a half-eaten melted ice cream cake out to the moving van. The guy argued that he paid for full service, which included all food items currently sitting on his kitchen counter. The crew had to literally lock the truck doors to prevent this man from forcefully shoving a sticky chocolate mess into a box of expensive silk ties. 44. Taxidermy requires a very specific level of respect. A rural hunter filed a massive damage claim because his prize stuffed squirrel was packed upside down in a heavily padded crate. The animal was completely undamaged, but the customer argued that being inverted for 3 days completely ruined the majestic spirit of his woodland trophy. He demanded a full refund for the disrespect, stating the company clearly lacked standard training and proper wildlife preservation. 45. Efficiency is usually praised, but one woman hated it with a burning passion. Her crew showed up early, packed everything flawlessly, and finished the entire job 3 hours ahead of schedule. Instead of being thrilled, she called corporate in tears, claiming the rapid pace made her feel incredibly rushed and anxious. She demanded a partial refund because she was mentally prepared for a long, miserable day, and their fast work completely ruined her emotional schedule. 46. Homemade explosives are a major red flag for any business. A guy in rural Georgia was absolutely outraged when a foreman refused to load 3 cardboard boxes full of highly unstable, illegally modified fireworks into a hot metal trailer. The customer tried to argue they were just festive sparklers, even though they were literally leaking black powder onto the pavement. He left a scathing review complaining about the total lack of patriotism from the moving industry. 47. Silence is golden unless you are highly paranoid. A frantic lady called dispatch to complain that her specific moving team was working entirely too quietly. She claimed that real laborers should be grunting, yelling, and dropping things constantly. Because they were silent and efficient, she assumed they were secretly a team of highly trained cat burglars plotting to steal her identity. She actually demanded they make more random noise so she could track their movements. 48. Sweating on a humid summer day is apparently deeply offensive. A customer filed a bizarre legal claim for severe emotional damage because he witnessed a large mover dripping sweat onto his front porch steps. He claimed the visual sight of human perspiration was deeply traumatizing and fundamentally ruined the clean aesthetic of his property entrance. He wanted the company to pay for a professional power washing service to eradicate the microscopic traces of hard work. 49. Gas lines are incredibly dangerous, but some clients do not care at all. A furious homeowner demanded a total refund when the crew refused to manually rip a live natural gas stove out from the wall with zero plumbing tools. The guy insisted they just needed to pull really hard until the metal pipe snapped. When the workers refused to blow up the entire city block, the customer called them absolute cowards and complained they were severely holding up his busy afternoon. 50. Geometric shapes caused a total mental breakdown for one woman. She threw a massive fit because the standard cardboard moving boxes were square, and they violently clashed with the unique circular feng shui of her living room. She demanded the guys stop working immediately and go find perfectly spherical containers for her belongings to keep the energy flowing properly. The team just ignored her nonsense and kept packing squares while she screamed into her crystals. 51. Wi-Fi passwords are a fiercely guarded secret. A teenager practically had a meltdown when the movers disconnected the household router to pack it away. She physically chased the truck down the street, holding her iPad, screaming that her parents were paying them to move boxes, not to steal her internet connection. She formally complained that the company purposely targeted her social life and demanded they plug the router into the truck battery for the entire drive. 52. Taking out the trash is a weekly chore, not a moving service. A lazy renter actively tried to force the moving crew to load 20 bags of rotting household garbage into the back of a pristine commercial truck. When the driver firmly rejected the biohazard, the renter claimed he was a victim of terrible customer service. He officially reported the guys for refusing to clear his property completely, genuinely believing that standard movers function exactly like dump trucks. 53. Plants need water, but moving trucks are not mobile greenhouses. An angry botanist filed a massive insurance claim because his expensive indoor ferns were extremely thirsty after a 4-day transit across the country. He seriously expected the truck driver to pull over at random rest stops, open the massive cargo door, and carefully mist 50 individual potted plants with a tiny spray bottle. He accused the transport company of aggressive and deliberate plant cruelty. 54. Sleep is crucial, especially on the job. A bizarre complaint came in from a wealthy client who was furious that the movers refused to sleep on her living room floor overnight to guard her boxes. It was a standard 2-day loading job, and she assumed the heavy lifters doubled as an overnight security detail. When the completely exhausted crew drove back to their actual homes to rest, she called the police to report them for entirely abandoning their strict guard post. 55. Elevators have strict weight capacities for a very good reason. A guy on the 15th floor went absolutely ballistic when his movers refused to jam a massive grand piano into a tiny residential elevator built for 4 people. The customer insisted they just needed to push it really hard and ignore the loud warning alarms. When the workers opted for the stairs to avoid plunging to their tragic deaths, the guy complained that they were just trying to waste his hourly rate. 56. Basic household amenities are apparently the responsibility of the hired help. A furious homeowner filed a formal grievance because the moving crew used her bathroom but did not bring their own personal rolls of toilet paper. She demanded a $20 credit on her final invoice for the 6 squares of 2-ply they consumed. The dispatcher literally laughed out loud before firmly explaining that commercial moving trucks do not function as fully stocked mobile restrooms. 57. Aquariums are heavy, but basic water physics remain a mystery to some people. One guy actively tried to force a crew to load a 70-gallon glass fish tank while it was still completely full of water, rocks, and live exotic fish. When the foreman politely explained that the sloshing water would instantly shatter the glass and drown his expensive electronics, the customer called corporate. He claimed the workers were simply too lazy to carry the extra liquid weight. 58. Sunlight is a precious commodity on a busy moving day. A deeply unhinged woman in Miami threw a massive fit because the giant commercial truck was parked in her driveway, completely blocking the sun from her favorite lawn chair. She demanded the driver circle the neighborhood for 3 hours while she finished her afternoon tanning session. When the driver obviously refused, she left a 1-star review claiming the company purposefully ruined her summer holiday glow. 59. Waterbeds belong in the 1980s, but they still cause modern nightmares. A guy in Ohio absolutely lost his mind when a crew refused to move his fully inflated, unemptied king-size waterbed down a flight of carpeted stairs. He seriously suggested they just roll it like a giant burrito. The foreman had to slowly explain that moving a ton of loose water would destroy the house. The furious customer reported the team for severe lack of creative problem-solving. 60. Luxury expectations can get incredibly out of hand. A wealthy client demanded a full refund because the standard heavy-duty moving blankets were not made of premium Egyptian cotton. She filed a bizarre damage claim stating the rough texture of the industrial fabric severely offended her expensive antique chairs. The corporate office had to officially notify her that protective freight blankets are designed to absorb heavy impacts, not to pamper sensitive mahogany wood. 61. Fashion emergencies actually happen in the heavy logistics industry. An influencer entirely halted her moving process because the neon green company shirts worn by the crew completely clashed with her carefully chosen moving day outfit. She demanded the sweaty guys change into neutral black shirts so her social media photos would look perfectly aesthetic. The workers completely ignored her ridiculous request and continued loading boxes while she angrily cried on camera. 62. Superstition makes people completely ignore basic safety protocols. A frantic homeowner demanded that all 3 movers walk entirely backward while carrying her furniture out the front door. She claimed that seeing their backs would invite terrible evil spirits into her new property. The crew chief firmly refused to carry heavy oak dressers backward down a concrete staircase blindfolded. She officially complained that the company was willfully endangering her spiritual safety. 63. Wildlife rescue is absolutely not a service offered by local movers. A rural customer got extremely angry when the driver refused to transport a wild raccoon he had trapped in a cage that very morning. The guy claimed he wanted to relocate his new angry pet to his next property. When the driver pointed out the hissing animal was a massive rabies risk, the guy called the main office to complain about the entire crew being completely hostile to local wildlife. 64. Bed sheets are strictly the responsibility of the person sleeping in them. A furious bachelor called corporate the morning after his delivery, demanding a partial refund because the crew did not physically make his bed. They assembled the heavy wooden frame perfectly, but he genuinely expected these exhausted men to tuck in his fitted sheets and fluff his pillows before driving away. He argued that the phrase full service should definitely include evening turn-down service. 65. Diesel engines are loud by design, but one neighbor refused to accept that reality. A woman actively tried to sue a transport company because their massive semi-truck made entirely too much noise when it started up in the morning. She claimed the mechanical rumble violently shook her delicate crystals and ruined her morning meditation routine. The dispatcher kindly informed her that commercial vehicles simply cannot be placed on silent mode like a standard smartphone. 66. Cables are completely baffling to certain technology users. A very angry client filed an official complaint, claiming the moving team deliberately sabotaged his expensive television set. The massive issue? They unplugged the power cord from the wall before putting the TV in a padded box. He seriously thought televisions stored electricity internally and accused the laborers of maliciously draining his battery power. The company had to explain how basic wall outlets actually work. 67. Arachnids usually cause absolute terror, but this guy was actively protecting them. A bizarre complaint came through when a mover instinctively swatted a massive spider crawling across a cardboard box. The homeowner absolutely lost his temper, screaming that the spider was a crucial part of the basement ecosystem he was trying to carefully pack. He demanded a massive discount for the tragic loss of his 8-legged friend, claiming the mover was guilty of unauthorized pest control. 68. Grocery shopping should never be mixed with interstate transport. A woman in Colorado demanded the delivery crew unpack 3 bags of fresh groceries she had secretly hidden inside her wardrobe boxes. The milk had obviously exploded everywhere, soaking her expensive winter coats. Instead of taking the blame for packing dairy products in a hot truck, she reported the movers for failing to immediately refrigerate her items upon arrival. The absolute audacity is mind-blowing. 69. The ultimate finale of moving absurdity happened in Texas. A chaotic husband filed a furious police report claiming the moving company deliberately kidnapped his wife. In reality, she had crawled deep inside a massive wardrobe box to fix a broken hanger and fell completely asleep. The crew sealed the box and loaded it onto the truck. He formally complained that the movers should have strictly monitored the cardboard for human breathing before taping it entirely shut. Which of these 69 lunatics was actually right? I dare you to defend one of these insane complaints in the comments right now. Subscribe and like so you do not miss our next descent into public madness. Also, if you held off on using one of your 3 weekly hypes, drop it now before these deranged customers find your new address.